I'm going to be reading the An Entreaty chapter and the chapter titled Invitation in this segment. Okay, so we're back to Bailey's story. It's 1902, which is actually a year. Wait a second, we haven't read that part yet. Never mind, I almost just gave away a big plot point. Okay, so we're in Massachusetts. The sheep are in a terrible mood today as Bailey attempts to usher them from one field to another. They have resisted prodding, swearing, and pushing, insisting that the grass in their current field is much nicer than the grass just on the other side of the gate in the low stone wall, no matter how much Bailey tries to persuade them otherwise. And then there is a voice behind him. Okay, so Bailey's working out in the field with the sheep. He's having a terrible time of it. Maybe he's not cut out for this after all. And then there is a voice behind him. Hello, Bailey. Poppet looks wrong somehow, standing there on the opposite side of the wall. The daylight is too bright, the surroundings too mundane and green. Her clothes, even though they are her incognito wear and not her circus costume, seem too fancy. Her skirt too ruffled for everyday wear. Her boots, though dusty, too dainty and impractical for walking across a farm. She wears no hat, her red hair loose, whipping around her head in the wind. Hello, Poppet, he says, once he recovers from his surprise. What are you doing here? I needed to talk to you about something, she says. Ask you something, I mean. It couldn't wait until tonight, Bailey asks. Meeting up with Poppet and Widget almost as soon as the circus opens each evening has become a nightly routine. Poppet shakes her head. I thought it would be better to give you time to think about it, she says. Think about what? Think about coming with us. Bailey blinks at her. What? He manages to ask. Tonight is our last night here, she says, and I want you to come with us when we leave. You're joking, Bailey says. Poppet shakes her head. I'm not. I swear I'm not. I wanted to wait until I was sure it was the right thing to ask, the right thing to do, and I'm sure now. It's important. What do you mean? Important how? Bailey asks. Poppet sighs. She looks up, peering as though she is searching for the stars hidden behind the blue sky, dotted with fluffy white clouds. I know you're supposed to come with us, she says. I know that part for certain. But why? Why me? What could I do? Just tag along? I'm not like you and Widget. I can't do anything special. I don't belong in the circus. You do. I'm certain that you do. I don't know why yet, but I'm sure you belong with me. With us, I mean. A scarlet blush creeps into her cheeks. I'd like to. I would. Bailey looks around at the sheep, at the house and the barn up on the hill lined with apple trees. It would either solve the argument of Harvard versus Farm or make it much, much worse. I can't just leave, he says, though it is not, he thinks, exactly what he means. I know, Poppet says. I'm sorry. I shouldn't ask you to, but I think... No, I don't think. I know. I know that if you don't come with us, we won't be back. Won't be back here? Why? Won't be back anywhere, Poppet says. Okay, so Poppet is requesting that Bailey would please go with them, and she says that if you don't come, the circus won't be back. He says back here, she says back anywhere. In other words, if you don't come with us, Bailey, the circus might be done. Like, the circus might be over. She raises her eyes to the sky again, scowling at it before she turns back to Bailey. If you don't come with us, there won't be any more circus. And don't ask me why. They don't really tell me why. She gestures at the sky, at the stars beyond the clouds. They just say that in order for there to be a circus in the future, you need to be there. You, Bailey. You and me and Widge. I don't know why it's important that it's all three of us, but it is. If not, it will all crumble. It's already starting. What do you mean? The circus is fine. I'm not sure it's anything that's really noticeable from the outside. If one of your sheep was sick, would I notice? Probably not, Bailey says. But you would, Poppet asks. Bailey nods. That's how it is with the circus. I know how it's supposed to feel, and it doesn't feel like that right now, and it hasn't for a while. I can tell something's wrong, and I can feel it crumbling like cake that doesn't have enough icing to hold it together. But I don't know what it is. Does that make any sense? Bailey only stares at her, and she sighs before she continues. Remember the night we were in the labyrinth when we got stuck in the birdcage room? Bailey nods. I've never been stuck anywhere in the labyrinth before. Never. If we can't find our way out of a room or a hall, I can focus and I can feel where the doors are. I can tell what's behind them. I try not to do it because it's not any fun that way. But that night I did when we couldn't figure it out, and it didn't work. It's starting to feel unfamiliar, and I don't know what to do about it. But how can I do anything to help? Bailey asks. You're the one who finally found the key, remember? Poppet says. I keep looking for answers, for the right thing to do, and nothing's been clear except for you. I know it's too much to ask, to have you leave your home and your family, but the circus is my home and my family, and I can't lose them. Not if there's something I can do to prevent it. I'm sorry. She sits on the rock wall, facing away from him. Bailey sits next to her, still facing the field and the incorrigible sheep. They sit in silence for a while. The sheep wander in lazy circles, nibbling on the grass. Do you like it here, Bailey? Poppet asks, looking out over the farm. Not particularly, Bailey says. Have you ever wished for someone to come and take you away? Did Widge tell you that? Bailey asks, wondering if the thought is so strong that it sits on him, evident and readable. No, Poppet says. It was a guess, but Widge did ask me to give this to you. She pulls a tiny glass bottle from her pocket and hands it to him. Bailey knows that though the bottle appears empty, it is likely not, and he is too curious not to open it immediately. He pulls out the minuscule stopper, relieved that it remains attached to the bottle with a curl of wire. The sensation inside is so familiar, so comforting and recognizable and real that Bailey can feel the roughness of the bark, the smell of the acorns, even the chattering of the squirrels. He wanted you to be able to keep your tree with you, Poppet says, if you decide to come with us. Okay, so remember the bedtime stories tent, and he could put all these different experiences into the bottles. Well, this is a real gift for Bailey because Widget has found a way to put the feeling of Bailey's oak tree into a bottle. That way, if he decides to go with them, he can still visit home whenever he wants to. Bailey replaces the stopper in the bottle. Neither of them speaks for some time. The breeze tugs at Poppet's hair. How long do I have to think about it? Bailey asks quietly. We're leaving when the circus closes tonight, Poppet says. The train will be ready before dawn, though it would be better if you could come earlier than that. Leaving can get a bit complicated. We're leaving when the circus closes tonight, Poppet says. The train will be ready before dawn, though it would be... Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. I'll think about it, Bailey says, but I can't promise anything. Thank you, Bailey, Poppet says. Can you do me one favor, though? If you're not going to come with us, could you just not come to the circus tonight at all and let this be goodbye? I think it would be easier. Bailey stares at her blankly for a moment, her words not quite sinking in. This is even more horrible than the choice to leave, but he nods because it feels like the proper thing to do. All right, he says. I won't come unless I'm going with you, I promise. Thank you, Bailey, Poppet says. She smiles, though he cannot tell if it is a happy smile or not. And before he can tell her to tell Widget goodbye for him if need be, she leans forward and kisses him. Not on the cheek, as she has a handful of times before, but on the lips. And Bailey knows in that moment that he will follow her anywhere. Poppet turns without a word and walks away. Bailey watches until he can no longer see her against the night sky, and then continues to stare after her, the tiny bottle clutched in his hand, still uncertain of how to feel or what to do, and left with only hours to decide. Behind him, the sheep, left to their own devices, decide to wander through the open gate into the field beyond. Okay, I'm going to go ahead with a really short chapter of invitation. Okay, so now's the time that we can look back and forth at the timeline. Okay, so the chapter that we just read with Poppet asking Bailey to come with the circus was a full year ahead of this invitation chapter right here. Okay, so we're backtracking by 1 year. It says, when the circus arrives in London, though Celia Bowen is tempted to go immediately to the address of Marco's flat, which is printed on the card she keeps on her person at all times, she goes instead to the Midland Grand Hotel. She does not make any inquiries at the desk. She does not speak to anyone. She stands in the middle of the lobby, going unnoticed by the staff and guests that pass her on their way to other locations, other appointments, and other temporary places. After she has stood for more than an hour, as still as one of the circus statues, a man in a gray suit approaches her. He listens without reaction as she speaks, and when she is finished, she only nods. She executes a perfect curtsy, and then she turns and leaves. The man in the gray suit stands alone, unnoticed, in the lobby for some time. Okay, so it could be a bit of a mystery as to what Celia just said to Alexander, except I asked you in your questions to look at the title for a hint, and I'm pretty sure you can figure it out from that. All right, let's see. I think that might be where I have to stop for now. I'll get you guys back with a couple more chapters a little bit later, okay?